Welcome back and thanks for staying with us here on Morning Live. Now, Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Basic Education says that it is concerned about the impact of budget cuts and how this will impact the quality of schooling. Provinces are now facing the possibility of cutting teaching jobs. Now, the Western Cape has announced it will have to cut 2,400 teaching posts at the end of the year. Teacher unions are threatening strike action over this particular move. And earlier this year, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana allocated 324.5 billion rand to the Basic Education Department for the 2024-2025 financial year. But for more on this matter, we're joined now by Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Basic Education chairperson, Joy Maimela. Ms. Maimela, thanks so much for your time. Welcome to Morning Live.
Good morning, Sakina, and thank you for having me, and good morning to the viewers of Morning Live.
Just getting straight into it, Ms. Maimela, provinces are now facing the possibility of cutting teacher posts, and this despite the minister, or the former minister, I should say, of Basic Education, Mochecha, having revealed prior to her leaving this portfolio in a written parliamentary reply that we currently have around 31,000 odd teacher vacancies in the country. So your view on this particular matter and those two juxtaposing views?
We are greatly concerned as a Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on the current announcements by various departments, provincial departments, on the annual policy process or policy practice that they undertake, which is called declaration of posts or declaring basket of posts. And our concern is that you can't, as a provincial education departments, even consider cutting teachers under the conditions that we are currently undertaking as a country. We want to enhance the curriculum. We are integrating ICT and subjects like coding and robotics in our curriculum content. And at the other hand, you need skilled teachers. So we also have concerns that there are other areas where overcrowding and the learner-teacher ratio is not up to the standards and the norms that are desired. So we can't agree, and we are really concerned about this potential teachers cut in provinces.
So, which creates a bit of confusion, if I'm honest, Ms. Maimela, because the Western Cape Department of Education has already said that it will not renew 2,400 contract positions. That would be at the end of this year. So from the 1st of January, there will be 2,400 fewer positions for teachers. They have already indicated that. We spoke to NAPTOSA Western Cape last week about this very matter. So your concern that you've just expressed, as opposed to the fact that those jobs are going to be lost in the Western Cape, don't quite tally. So explain to us, what this means for those teachers in the Western Cape and what could potentially happen elsewhere as well.
Well, Sakina, we've met with the Department of Basic Education last week, and we've made it very clear that we'll be calling all provinces, all provincial education departments to appear before the department and to engage with the department on exactly which areas are they planning to actually cut, or the implications of the budget cuts, which areas are affected. And we're going to engage with the Department of Basic Education in the Western Cape. We are going to discourage them from doing what they are saying they want to do, because the schools that get affected the most when you do that, it's schools that are falling within the category of quintile 1 to quintile 3. And these are schools where the poor children and the children from the working class background rely on that education system. So we are going to raise it with them, and we are hoping we're going to have this meeting somewhere next week with all the provinces, because this does not only affect the Western Cape. However, other provinces are reprioritizing their budget to ensure that they fund the teachers' posts that are not part and parcel of the declared posts.
Again, what is your suggestion then to the Western Cape Department of Education in terms of redirecting monies in order to avoid losing teacher posts?
Yes, look, we said to the departments when they come to us, we ought to look at where exactly they are spending their budget. So we ought to understand exactly what are essential needs. And in our own view, teaching and teachers are essential for the quality of learning and teaching in schools. So we're going to look at exactly where they're spending their money on, the programs that they undertake as a department, and then we are going to make suggestions to that department to say, perhaps you should do this. Perhaps you should actually rechannel the monies from this item to that item. But we believe that if other provinces are have the capacity to do that, the Western Cape can do the same.
So in that consideration, Ms. Maimela, does the Portfolio Committee plan on meeting with the Minister of Finance in any particular regard regarding this particular issue to discuss ways to protect the Education Department from budget cuts, for example, or for more money to be allocated to this very important department?
Of course, Sakina, we are going to meet the provincial departments alongside the DBE at a national level, and we also want to meet Treasury in one meeting as a portfolio committee. We want the three stakeholders to meet with us, and we find a way to protect the quality of learning and teaching in our schools.
And also important is, of course, the outcomes of the spending in this department. Are you satisfied, Ms. Maimela, about the assessments and the return on investment in the Department of Basic Education in terms of all the outputs, all the outcomes that need to be ticked?
We have not reached a point where we want to reach at. That's an honest truth. For example, we want the department to improve the performance of learners as it relates to STEM subjects. And we want to see an enhanced pace in terms of integration of ICT, especially in rural schools. So we are not necessarily where we want to be. However, it is going to be very prudent, and this is a discussion we've been having with the department. It's going to be prudent that there is effective management of resources, especially under the current circumstances, and that where different departments do not spend the limited resources as planned, there ought to be consequence management. But we're also going to really improve our monitoring and oversight work to ensure that budget is spent accordingly and resources of the state are spent efficiently and effectively.
And I'm curious to understand, improve it how? Because this is a story and a song we've heard over and over again, and yet year after year, you know, we hear the same promises from the Department of Education, and you've got the norms and standards, for example, that have been set out for the Department of Basic Education as far as infrastructure development is concerned. We've missed several deadlines on that score. The department earlier gazetted regulations that will compel all schools in the country to meet those minimum norms and standards within the next 12 to 18 months. Are you concerned that, you know, firstly, the budget issue will impact on that, these budget cuts? And secondly, what happens if we miss those deadlines yet again?
Yes, it's true. Like I said, that we are not where we want to be, and we're concerned about especially what the department deemed the inconsistency in terms of the implementation of projects by projects implementers, and they call it implementing agents. And the department has raised it with us that they are concerned that other implementing agents are not performing as expected. And they have presented to us a strategy on how to ensure that the implementing agents actually deliver on time and deliver quality work. So we are concerned, and that's why we're saying we need also, as a portfolio committee of parliament, to ensure that we enhance our oversight work. We need to enhance our monitoring and checking the performance, quarterly performance of the department, to ensure that they are meeting the planned performance plans or the planned performance targets.
And, you know, speaking of improvement in STEM, what sort of plans, again, you know, are you going to be looking for from the Department of Basic Education to ensure that we actually stop talking about this and we see actual improvement in this regard?
Well, we meeting the department weekly, where we are focusing every week on a specific discussion. This week we are focusing on gender equality in schools, and we said we're going to meet them to focus on their planned activities to improve the performance of learners as it relates to STEM subjects. The department presented preliminary activities that they are going to be undertaking, and we said we want to interrogate those, scrutinize those activities that they want to undertake in order to improve the performance in the STEM subjects. And some of those were that they want to introduce extra classes and ensure that there's extra classes in schools, and they have to develop a plan to ensure that there's extra classes that are offered, especially as it relates to these subjects. So we want to scrutinize that plan so that we certify ourselves as a committee that that plan is going to actually improve the performance, because you're correct. We have been speaking about improving, and we have not necessarily reached a level that we want to reach as the country.
And to that point, again, what happens if we don't reach the set targets? Because I suppose that is part of the problem, the lack of consequences for failure to achieve targets.
It's true. One of the things that this parliament and the 7th administration and, of course, the 6th administration has been engaging or has been raising, it's an issue of our inability to apply consequence management. And we are going to be calling for those who have failed, those who are given the responsibility, to ensure that they perform as they had set targets, because they set the targets and we just monitor if they are delivering on those targets. We're going to be calling that there is consequence management against those who are given responsibilities to perform these tasks. And if these targets are not met, we really are going to call on the head of the state to apply serious consequence management, because we can't always speak about consequence management where performance falls short and there isn't any action. So we're going to be sternly calling on the head of state to ensure that there is consequence management when those who are responsible for certain tasks don't perform those tasks.
Ms. Joy Maimela, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Basic Education, talking to us about the impact of budget cuts on teaching and learning in schools, looking at that situation in the Western Cape. And it's going to be interesting. I'm very, very interested to see how that particular engagement unfolds with the Western Cape Department, because as far as those salary cuts, they have made the announcement of the loss of 2.4 K or 2,400 jobs at the end of this year. But they also indicated that part of the reasoning behind that is because of the shortfall as far as wages are concerned. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this unfolds.